Hello, guys, and welcome to Indiana Sports Connection. I am your residential anchor, Aaron. I thought this was live, and it was not live, so we have a lot of stuff to talk about on the show today. Omar Balo commits to Indiana. Mike Woodson, he's got some stuff going on. Myles Rice commits to Indiana, and I have not made a video and talked about him yet, so we'll talk about those two guys and what Indiana's future in basketball is going to look like next year. I will say this, Omar Balo, great rebounder. I will say Indiana, and I just pulled these statistics. These statistics since Mike Woodson has been here. Offensive rebounding, year 1, 205. Year 2, we were 197. And year 3 last year, we were 254th in offensive rebounding. That makes it really tough to have a great offense. If there's one way you want to make your offense better, get better at offensive rebounding. You'll have more possessions. Your offense will just become more efficient naturally. One team you can look at, Houston, they are a team that they're not great shooters or anything, but they rebound the ball on the offensive end, and that goes a long ways. That's why they were one of the most efficient offenses. So Omar Balo, will he be a more complementary piece to Malik Renew? And look, I've heard all of your complaints. Like now I've heard Todd Leary and I've heard all the people in the comment section talking about, should we put Renew at the 5? And me, myself, too, I was buying into that as well. I could see this be, one of two different ways that this could really go for the Hoosiers is that, Renew with his foul trouble and he could have been a complete disaster at the 5. I know, TJD moved from the 4 to the 5 because the first year when he had Joey Brunk and he played with him, he played at the 4 more. But he also had a great leaping ability, and his ability to block shots was a lot better than what Malik Renew is. So I kind of see right now, I can definitely hold two different ideas in my brain at the same time. I could see where Indiana needs to get better shooters on the floor, and they need to space the floor more, where that makes sense to put Renew at the 5. But now Renew is not a great rebounder, and that is what I think would really tear up Indiana if he was the only guy on our team to be out there rebounding. So if this is your first time here, welcome to Indiana Sports Connection. I am your residential anchor, Aaron. We are talking about the Indiana Hoosiers. Subscribe to the channel down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the team, about the Hoosiers. And this is a live stream edition. I would say it's an emergency edition. But, I was just in the middle of making a video today about Myles Rice and all that stuff. And I'm like halfway through doing all of that. And then I see Omar Balo commits to Indiana. So that is the big news that we were talking about today. And Myles Rice. Everybody talking about Myles Rice and his three-point shooting, and will he be able to fill it up at Indiana from deep? Everybody's saying, about the 0 for 22 streak he had through 9 games and how that brought his percentage down. I can see all of those different things. I will say this. I don't think there's any way that Mike Woodson and this team shoots like 25 three-pointers next year. There's no chance of that. What they really got to do is figure out a way that they're at least hitting enough three-pointers that it's not really hurting your team when you look at the stats at the end of the game. That is huge for Indiana that they're able to just hit about 7. That would be my goal. Hit at least 7 a game. How many do you have to shoot to hit 7 a game? I guess you do have to shoot about 20 some. If you're shooting 33%, you'd be shooting 21. So, but we know Indiana's not going to really play that style this next year. And I really have this to say about it as well, is that Mike Woodson, he doesn't see that being a system that he's familiar with or anything. Although all of us do, because we've watched the Golden State Warriors and we've watched all these college basketball teams like Alabama and things really tear it up from the three-point line. But if Mike Woodson as a coach can't see how to play that way, then it will be a complete disaster. I mean, he has to figure out, and we can already see from getting Omar Balo, he's gonna play two bigs, Myles Rice at the point, and Mbako at the 3 as a shooter. And the only position I would really like to see Indiana fill, and then have Trey Galloway come off the bench, is the shooting guard spot. To me, you can't put Balo out there with Renew. Mbako can shoot from the 3, and then have a guy at the 2 like Galloway who just can't shoot 3-pointers. You're going to have to fill that spot with a shooter. Will they be able to get, and I don't want to mess these guys' names up, there's a few guys in the transfer portal shooters. Can Indiana get one of those guys and get a 2 guard with Myles Rice to be able to shoot from perimeter? That is going to be key. Or else we'll be looking at a team that only makes 1 or 2 3-pointers. The rebounding is huge for Omar Balo to improve our offensive rebounding, because he is a much better rebounder than Kel'el Ware. Drove me nuts. Tell me if you think this. Like, Kel'el Ware last year, he did not position himself in good positions over and over. I rewatched games and I'd be like, he would just really not move his feet to get in position to rebound. He would do more like a reach back or a reach over, and he just wouldn't do it. This Balo guy, he's got a lot more body to him. He's going to be a lot more of an intimidator down there. He is a rim running type of center where, him and Myles Rice, they're going to be the ones put in the 1-2 in Mike Woodson's system. We know what he likes to run, that kind of like action, that zoom action around the top of the key, and then get the big guy like running downhill towards the rim so that the guard can put it up for him. That's what Balo's going to be doing in this system with Myles Rice. But we're still, I guess I'm like really cautiously optimistic about this pickup, and I'm not trying to be negative. I do want to address this on my channel because I get people that I think look just at the thumbnails and they will like leave these negative comments. Look, YouTube, you have to make the thumbnails is like an art to itself. And by thumbnails, I mean the little square that you click on. Like if you saw this thumbnail, it said Woody's cooking, and I got Mike Woodson and Myles Rice on the cover, and I should have got Omar Balo, but I was already setting up for this video when I was getting ready to do this. But just so you know, like YouTube as a business, and really as a business in general, clickbait, it works. If people didn't click on it, they won't really promote my videos unless they have enticing titles and thumbnails. And I can see the difference between, I mean, I will make a video and I'll show you the videos where I'm super they're positive thumbnails about Galloway or about, nobody really wants to watch those videos. It's human nature. People respond to negativity a lot more than they respond to, and that's around us all the time at this point. So I just wanted to address that because I feel like there are many people out there that just, love to see a thumbnail or something and leave a hateful comment and not really understand, like, that's essential to really what I'm doing here. And subscribe to the channel. That's what really gets it out. And the thumbs up gets it out to more Hoosier fans. I want to thank my sponsor, NordVPN. Click the link in the description down below. These days, cybersecurity is just as important as physical security. That's why I use NordVPN on all my devices. I use it on my computer and my phones, and it keeps everything safe and encrypted. They use really top-notch encryption to keep everything of your data safe. NordVPN. Thank you, Tony, for this is maybe the first person. I don't even have this set up where I can see how many people are in here, but I do think that we were destined to have two bigs with Renew, and it's really was how it was going to be the whole time. And like I was saying at the beginning of this video, if Mike Woodson doesn't see, the way to play, if he envisions it to be the way that it is with the two bigs, then that's the way it's got to be. I mean, he's the coach. He's the one that has to really visualize how this is going to be out there on the court. Our offensive rebounding getting much better is going to be huge. I mean, Hoosier fans are going to complain, and people are already complaining about his free throw percentage is only 54% or 48%. But we do have to. I mean, next year, our free throw percentage has to get over 70%. If we go into another season and we have that bad of free throw shooting and we can't shoot three-pointers, it's going to be very difficult to win games. I talked about earlier, the offensive rebounding is huge, and I had no idea that Indiana was that bad at offensive rebounding until I looked it up. That's how you can change the efficiency of your team, is by getting more offensive rebounds and getting more possessions for your team through that. Valuing the possessions through rebounding is very, very huge. But what are we going to see, like and Tony, that was actually one of my next things on my card here. The next thing is developing the bench. You can see it's going to be Balo, Renew, and Baco at the 3. I would love to fill and have Galloway come off the bench. Honestly, Galloway, he is such a high-energy guy, and he's just not proven himself to be consistent enough to, rely on him. He played great in the Kansas game. If you got that out of him every game, you'd say, this guy. But I think putting some pressure on Galloway to get better at shooting, like if Indiana went out there and got a guy in the 2 spot that could be a real good 3-point shooter, then you're talking. You got a team with Mbako, who I think will take great leaps forward. I think Mbako will have a lot of games next year where he scores 20 or more points for this team. I just think he's going to grow. I think he'll be more comfortable being on the team. And I said I was going to respond to the, we used to make more than other. But this is just going to be huge, I believe, for Galloway coming off the bench if we can get another shooter on the team. And I know everybody is saying that. So where are we going to get this guy from? We got to – the next step of this is developing some type of a bench. Practically all of the guys who played off of our bench, I think we need to put more thought the coaches have to put more thought into what type of big guy they want to be the backup to Renew and Balo, because Peyton Sparks was, and I liked him. I liked the way he played. I liked the intensity Peyton Sparks brought, but he just did not fit into the system we were running. A big part of why last year was such a struggle was because when our starting lineup came out, we were absolutely atrocious. Whenever we got 2 of our starters not in the game, we completely imploded. So the Hoosiers got to build a bench or build some continuity on the bench or something. It is like Ja'Kai Newton. And I, keep forgetting about him because he is like the Jelani Woods of this Indiana team. But this dude is, if you look at his Instagram, this Ja'Kai Newton is a beast. He looks like the Predator with dreadlocks, and he is a physical specimen. That's what I'm trying to say. Ja'Kai Newton, can he fill it up from deep? It's really hard in basketball to, without seeing this Newton guy be able to get out there in the Big Ten and be able to put this together. Will he be able to do it? I've heard nothing but great things about this guy. There's one other perspective of this that I think is maybe important to talk about, and was Xavier Johnson for the Hoosiers last year. Did he sour the locker room? Because there is times where I kind of thought that on this team that some of the younger players maybe just did not like being around him, and And that you can have one bad apple on a basketball team like that, just spoil the whole bunch. I watched the interview with Myles Rice. This guy, with all he's went through at such a young age, there's no doubt that he is just like wise beyond his years. So to replace Xavier Johnson, who kind of a head case, I mean, we know he was driving 90 down Kirkwood Avenue and you know, just the things we saw on the floor with him were really, really hard to kind of take as fans. Replacing him with somebody who's like a quality character guy like this Myles Rice, that could go a long, long way for everybody just feeling like they're more into this team than they were last year. I could definitely see just not having Xavier Johnson on the team could change the entire dynamic of all of our guards, Cups, I mean, just everybody, Ja'Kai Newton. We just, without being there, and I would just love to be a fly on the wall during one of these practices, and maybe I can make that happen this summer somehow. But without seeing, you know, it's just really hard to say. But just from watching from the outside, from going to a few games, I know Gabe Cupps is a very, very vocal guy. I mean, you could see him like during the games just really, really. It is shaping up to be a good team. And, you know, what we have so far, we are number one in the transfers right now. So, I mean, we are absolutely killing it. And, you know, thank you guys for jumping on this live stream. I want to do more and more live streams because as my job gets more and more hard, it does get harder and harder to edit videos. And doing these types of videos don't take, I mean, as much preparation and editing and everything like that. So, Tony E says, I honestly think Galloway is a very underappreciated, underrated player. He needs to continue working on his shooting. Yes, that's what I would just like to see out of him. But he is good on defense. He makes a lot of plays on offense. He's definitely like the spark plug for the entire team. If he could, I think last year he was put in a really bad positions where sometimes he was guarding their best point guard at times, and that can be difficult to do that and bring the ball up the floor and run all the plays and everything like that. But so far, this is shaping up to be a winner of an offseason for the Hoosiers. And, you know, 2 years ago, Galloway was shooting like 50%. If he could bring that back and be more in that 2 spot where he's driving more off of the wing, not bringing the ball up, I think Galloway just got where when he was bringing the ball up, he was trying to set up the ball screens. And, I mean, I think the Purdue game was probably the best look at, like, how that just did not work because they were, like, icing him the entire time, trying to get him to drive right. He was trying to drive left. It was just worried about the coaching. I mean, we're all worried about the coaching. But at this point, I mean, it's either going to be we're going to make the tournament next year and we're going to see more of this, or we're not going to make the tournament next year and we're going to see no more of this at all. I mean, I think the team next year, I mean, if they were, I think if they're 13, if they win 13 games in the Big Ten next year, I think he's going to stay. And that's really what I want. I want to see this succeed. I just want to see. I'm not that stubborn where it has to succeed in the way that I want it to succeed. I do feel like from reading a ton of people's comments, I do feel like a lot of people want to see it go totally in a different direction. But if we could win 13 games in the Big Ten next year, if we'd be in the top 3, which really I thought we should be in the top 3 this year. I mean, if you look at how bad the Big Ten was this year, there's no reason we shouldn't have been in the top 3. But I hope I am not losing track of time here because I have to pick my daughter up at 4:30 and I just have a few more minutes, but this is huge for the Hoosiers. I'm going to do more videos, you know, talking about as more guys shuffle in, we'll get a clear picture of how this is going to look. But with, you know, Bryson Tucker coming in, will he come off the bench or will he be he really can't play in that 2-guard spot as a shooter. I'm guessing he's going to come off the bench. I just would love to see them get one of these knockdown shooters. Connor Essegian, he's still out there. I think he wants a starting role. That's why he left at Wisconsin. He would be an Indiana guy. Davis, that's from Gary, Indiana, which I'm pointing in all the wrong directions. He could maybe be a guy that would come to Indiana, really a big time. But I think Indiana still has a starting spot to sell to somebody, and then you'd be looking at what guys would be playing on the bench, which, like I talked about earlier, the bench was a huge just downfall of this team last year because we couldn't count on it for anything. But thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Indiana Sports Connection. Big pickups for the Hoosiers, and we have a lot to be excited about. Watch the highlights of this guy, Balo, and he just has definitely a lot more of a physical presence than Ware. So I am really looking for him to – he's a prototypical, more of like a Kofi Coburn, more of like that type of center that really Coburn is probably the one that I thought compared him to the most because he doesn't get in foul trouble. He doesn't ever take a shot from a long way away. And hopefully he's going to be dominating these games. Until next time, stay classy out there, Colts and Hoosier fans.